That's pretty good. Get this started in just 1 minute. Okay, here we go.
Sit back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping it sports with M3, right here on All Noise Radio.
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful. Are you ready? Are you ready for...
Place with the best sports talk and news surrounding each week.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic. Hey man, this time I'll do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosnansky. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everything's going well for you here on this Monday, the 20th day of July. This is Keeping It Sports with M3 back in the dining room once again. Do that here today because the family's all on vacation until tomorrow, so I'm here alone, get to talk, be as loud as I possibly can here in the downstairs part of the house for today, and sit back and talk a little sports with you for the next, I don't know, at least an hour, however long I feel like rambling on, and however long any of you feel like listening and putting up with me for, because I'm happy. I'm not in the point where we all want to be. We all want to get back to normalcy, and it's only going to happen if everybody starts wearing these, but I'm going to get away from all of that today. I'm going to get away from all of the annoyance that the last 4+ months have been, because it didn't seem like this day would come. It seemed like this was just a myth, something that was hopeful thinking for 2020, but we finally made it. Sports is coming back. This week is the week. It's Christmas in July, ladies and gentlemen, as we are getting the sports world back with baseball coming back on Thursday night, NBA teams starting scrimmages this week. The NHL is about 10 days away from coming back, and I could not be happier. Now, yeah, it's going to suck not having fans in the building. It's going to suck us not being there, only being able to watch on television each night. But that's the situation we're in right now. That's the hand that we have unfortunately been dealt, and we just got to deal with it. We just got to deal with the fact that, it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same. I'll be honest with you. At first, over the weekend when I was watching some of the summer camp games, in particular between the Yankees and the Mets, it did feel weird, especially at Yankee Stadium, seeing no fans behind home plate. Now, some would argue that's every home game because they price the real fans out of those seats. But it did feel weird not seeing actual people sitting in the seats other than the players, the bench players who aren't playing, sitting behind their respective dugouts, socially distancing in the seats. But there were some added elements to it. I wasn't sure how I'd like the sound being piped in from the video game MLB The Show, but it wasn't awful. It wasn't... I do think there's some kinks they got to work out with it, because there were times where, it wasn't as loud for the home team on, say, a home run as it was just a, little opposite field single to right field. So those kind of things got to be worked out. But for the most part, it was enjoyable. And once you got past, the first inning or so with it, it was just baseball. And that's all I wanted. That's all I've been hoping for from a sports sense, mind you, for the last 4 months. Now, at first, I'll be honest, the jerk in me was very critical when I first saw on Saturday night that the Mets put the cardboard cutouts in the seats, about 5,000 of them, of real fans' faces. You pay, I think it was $86, and you get your face in one of the seats. But once I heard that, the money for that is going to COVID relief, I'm like, you know what? Even the Mets get one thing right every once in a while, so I can't rip them too much for that. It's different. It's not something personally I would want to see for all 60 games at especially the 30 at Yankee Stadium. But hey, to each their own. It added a little bit something to it. I mean, this is better than no sports at all. Am I right? It's better. And as I've said from the beginning, I don't know if they're going to complete it. I don't know if this is going to work out and they'll get through it seamlessly without it turning into Armageddon. But at least they're trying. At least they're giving an effort with this. Same with the NBA. They're giving an effort. They're they got the bubble situation going on there. They're making the media that comes in for that quarantine for 7 days and have to test negative for 7 days consecutive before they can officially enter the bubble, attend practices, be within the vicinity for Zoom interviews afterwards. And that's just what we're gonna have to go through right now if we want to make it through. Now, what I did find funny is the report that came out last week in the NBA, the reports of the Snitch Hotline. And at first it had me laughing my ass off because I'm like, wow, this could either be a big positive or it could be used for all the wrong reasons, because you could see coaches use it for an advantage. Like, Doc Rivers was even joking last week that he's going to use it all the time until the Clippers are the NBA champions. I think someone even potentially caught Dwight Howard with it last week. They thought he was bordering the no-go zone, as we saw two rank and file NBA players get caught doing last week. One of them waiting for Grubhub to bring them food. So no, that I can worry about. But hey, as long as it's used correctly, it does help. You don't want the virus getting in there and then just destroying this whole thing. Because if someone brings it in, that's it. Then you don't have a bubble anymore. Then you're just like everybody else. You just happen to be playing in one centralized location. So, as long as no one's stupid, I don't worry about the NBA players potentially getting sick. I do. Or even the NHL, because God knows Canada has handled things much better than we have. It's why it's become the most appetizing country in North America right now. But as far as the Snitch Hotline, I'm waiting to see if someone does push the limits. Does a high-ranked superstar try to push the limits, thinking that, hey, I'm, Giannis Antetokounmpo, I'm LeBron James, I'm Damian Lillard. I'm a top guy in this league. They're not gonna kick me out of the bubble if I'm going somewhere that I'm not supposed to be. So that's going to be something that is going to be interesting to watch. Though we have seen one player already leave. Unfortunately, Zion Williamson. There's a serious health-related situation involving a family member of his, and and you hope for the best for him. You hope for the best for his family, but it does kind of put a wrinkle in the NBA's plans because we've said it from the beginning. This 22 team situation, instead of just having some pre-playoff scrimmages and then going into the playoffs, going with this 22 team thing was set up all because the league wants to get Zion Williamson into the playoffs. Don't believe me? Look, the first real game back is going to be the Pelicans against the Jazz. And as good as the Jazz are, they ain't doing it for the Jazz, other than the hope for potentially, a fight between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, which personally I am hoping happens. As a person that, I don't consider myself an evil person, although some people would question that. No, I am a person that somewhat holds a grudge. I think those who know me well would say that is a big fault of mine. If when they showed up for team practices in Orlando, or the team got together to head to Orlando, if that was the first time that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert have contacted each other, seen each other since March 11th, was it? If I'm Donovan Mitchell, I knock the living hell out of Rudy Gobert. Because Rudy Gobert, remember, that's when it all came crashing down. Now, someone was going to bring it all down to begin with, but we all remember what a jackass he acted like, with touching the microphones, breathing on and touching teammates' stuff in the locker room, and that's what was kind of what broke the straw here. So there's that eventful storyline, but I look forward to the NBA coming back. You've got scrimmages starting up this week. My Brooklyn Nets got a game on Wednesday night, which, who's actually playing for the team? It's going to be Karis LeVert, Gary Temple, and a bunch of D-League guys. They had to drag Jamal Crawford, it's a 40-year-old rear end, out of retirement to play in this thing. The only thing they have working out for them is the fact that even if they go 0-8, it would take the Wizards going at least 6-2 to catch them for a playoff spot. And the Wizards are without Beal, Wall, and at least one other player on the team. So I'm not as much concerned about the Nets not making the playoffs because, as long as LeVert's healthy, I think he'll probably put up 30 a night and keep the Nets somewhat alive for a playoff spot. But damn, they're going to get torched by either the Raptors or the Bucks in the first round. That is probably the only guarantee I'll give you with this entire thing, because as I've said last week, you can't judge this based on what happened the first 64 to 66 games of what was the 2019-2020 season. You have to approach this as if this is a completely new season with the time off. The fact that LeBron got this 4-month respite. The Clippers were able to get healthy. All of the young stars got themselves in the best shapes of their career. Hell, even Carmelo Anthony has a new nickname. He's Skinny Mello. I mean, he must have stopped eating meat during these 4 months getting ready for this. So that's, what we have to look forward to. Expect the unexpected. There could be some kind of upset here along the way in the first round, knocking a favorite out of this all. But, like you all, I'm just glad we have it back. I'm just glad that what we've waited for 4 months during what was, for all of us collectively together, probably the most miserable 4 months we've had in our lifetime, unless you have, for forbid, lost a loved one during this time. You've dealt with it yourself. My heart goes out to you with all that. If you are someone that has had to deal with this or deal with even losing a loved one for a non-COVID related reason, but we're finally getting sports back, and that just brings a smile to my very handsome looking face. So, I got a lot I want to talk about today. With baseball being the first one back, in a couple minutes, I got previews right here. Going to go through each division. I'll have full predictions as far as Major League Baseball playoffs coming up this Wednesday. Sorry about the light dimming there. I got computer screen on in the background. So I'll have full predictions on that coming up on Wednesday. Stay tuned for the Facebook page for Keeping It Sports with M3. If you're not already a follower of it, what are you doing? Please go there, click the follow button, share it, have your friends become followers. Remember, they don't have to be friends of mine on Facebook to do so, as well as follow us on Twitter at Keeping It Sports on Twitter. And as well, you can always find this online, anchor.fm/M3's opinion. So a lot to talk about today. Preview baseball coming up. We'll touch on the NFL with the contract situations that occurred last week and the chaos going on down in Washington, D.C. And no, I'm not talking about our federal government for once there. So a lot to talk about in the next 45 minutes or so. So sit back, relax, enjoy the rest of your Monday afternoon, and continue keeping it sports with M3. Let's get the next segment going here. Make sure we got the light. Okay, welcome back to Keeping It Sports with M3. As I said before, I hope you're having a great Monday afternoon. And, sports coming back this week. After a lot of hell for the last 2 months, baseball's the first one back, and that brings a lot of warmness to this cold heart here, because baseball, I love all 4 sports, but baseball, that's my favorite. That I can sit back and, as much as I love my Yankees, I could sit back and watch it almost any 2 teams play, even if I don't have a dog in the race. Like, if there's a time, back in what was our normal way of life, if I wasn't home, if I was home on a Saturday night, or I happened to be sick, couldn't go out with the boys on that weekend night, and I'd check MLB Network. They always got either a game at 8 o'clock on Saturdays or a late night West Coast game. Sit back on my couch, watch that, and I'd enjoy it. Even if they were giving me, Giants versus the Marlins, or the Padres versus the Pittsburgh Pirates, I wouldn't care. It's baseball. I love it. So So I'm glad to see it back. A 60-game schedule that, I've said before, just like with basketball, expect the unexpected, because we see all the time teams get off to hot starts. There have been plenty of times where we've seen a young team get off to a hot start, not knowing any better, through the months of April and May. First 60 games, they become the darling. And then around the All-Star break, once the big boys start getting together, they fizzle out a little bit and just miss, showing that, they were a year too early. But hey, in a 60-game schedule, you get off to a hot start, you can be that year too early team. So I figure with it being the last show before baseball getting started, let's go through this. Why not break down these divisions? I'll start in the National League. We'll go with the National League West to start off, where you got the presumptive favorite, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are coming off a third straight disappointing end to their season. But this one even more disappointing, because 17-18, they got to the World Series. They lost to what was thought to be the better team, although, we're seeing now that maybe that wasn't much the case with what those teams may or may not have been doing during those games. But, lost a heartbreaking Game 5 at home to the Nationals last year, with Kershaw giving up the back-to-back homers in the 8th inning. Dave Roberts foolishly pushing the limits with Joe Kelly and saving Kenley Jansen to the point where they were down by 4 runs in that 10th inning. And they lost a couple of their starting pitchers during the offseason with trading Maeda to the Twins. Rich Hill followed him there as a free agent. Also lost Hyunjin Ryu. But they made a big trade. Traded Alex Verdugo in that trade, with the aforementioned trade with the Twins also involving the Dodgers to go get Mookie Betts and David Price, arguably the biggest move of the offseason. Also got a hard-throwing relief prospect, Bruiser Gratol in the trade, if I'm pronouncing that right. But, they have some things working against them here. The fact that David Price decided to opt out out of concern with the coronavirus. And, you got to wonder, can Kershaw still be the ace of this team? Can he still be, an elite starting pitcher? Because he's only 32 years old, but people forget, he's been around. This is his 13th year in the big leagues. He has been around now since he was 19, 20 years of age. And he's got a young kid there in Walker Buehler pushing him for that number 1 spot, as well as the fact that, there's going to be a lot on his back, even though in a shortened season, you don't have to worry so much about innings limits with young pitchers. You can just let them go. They got a very young rotation behind them. Urias is finally going to be in the rotation. You got the kid Dustin May that everybody likes. Ross Stripling is still out there after that failed trade with the Angels earlier in the offseason. So, there's questions about Kershaw. And you got Jansen coming off of what was a disappointing season, and a season that ended with his manager not having faith in him in the biggest game of their season. So you'll wonder where he is mentally. As well as, listen, there's no team that has more pressure on them to win it all than the Dodgers. And I've said before, whoever wins it, this counts. Everybody's playing on the same 60-game routine. You're playing against your division and the opposing league's division. So there's no, anybody at an unfair advantage having to play by a different set of rules. Everybody's got the DH. Everybody's got the same schedule format. But it's been 31 years since this team won a championship in the second biggest sports market in this country. That's something that looms over them, hangs over them. And can you imagine how much worse it could be for them if, say, the Lakers or the Clippers go on and win the NBA championship, and that's ending during the Major League Baseball playoffs, if they come up short again? Or, the Rams, people expect them to have a bounce back and be a contender in the NFC again this year. If those two sports get a championship contender and the Dodgers still are seeking that championship in what would now be 32 years, so there's a lot of pressure on them. And what works in their favor is you look around the division, there's not that huge threat. Now, the Diamondbacks, they were in the mix till the very end for a wild card spot last year and made the big move during the offseason to improve. Trade for Starling Marte, sign Madison Bumgarner to a big deal to replace Zach Greinke. But they got issues there. You need to see if Ketel Marte was a fluke or not. Can he hit home runs at that same pace as he did last year? He's not going to hit 32 bombs. Neither is Christian Walker going to hit 29 in a 60-game sample. But can these guys hit in the 18 to 20 home run range, be that power threat for them? And what are you going to get out of the rest of that rotation? I mean, you're looking at, Robbie Ray being the number 2 starter there, and then a bunch of journeymen filling those spots. Now, in a 60-game season, this could be the time for a young team to come alive like the Padres. But are they ready to take that next step with their young star Fernando Tatis, the second year of Manny Machado in San Diego, as well as, there's not going to be an innings limit on Chris Paddock. They kept him at only about $135 last year. In a normal season, they probably would have kept him to 175. That's not going to be the case this year. He's going to be just let the strings loose, and if he goes 7-8 innings to start, so be it. They're going to ride him for as long as they can, but are they ready to take that next step? They added a big-time reliever in Drew Pomeranz during the off-season, but other than that, they didn't make as many splash moves. They added a lot of depth pieces along the way. You got the Rockies, all of their starters had kind of disappointing years. Their young guys who were so good in 2018 kind of came down to earth a little bit, maybe tired out from pitching in Colorado a second year like that. But you got the drama hanging over them from Arenado not being traded in the offseason. A good lineup, but the question with them is always, how do they react to outside of Coors Field? And then there's the Giants, who are in rebuild mode. So, this division is for the Dodgers taking, but there are question marks that surround them when it comes to being a championship contender, and they got teams to deal with. In the NL Central, what has a chance to be a very competitive division. You look at the Brewers coming off a disappointing way to end their season last year with Josh Hader blowing the wild card game. And maybe normally I'd be a little bit concerned, especially with the workload he's had over the last 2 years. But he's had now, 8-9 months off to recuperate and get a little bit stronger, especially with this break here. So hopefully he's fully over that. They did, lose Mike Moustakas, Eric Thames, and Yasmani Grandal in free agency, but picked up some nice depth pieces in Morrison, Holt, and Justin Smoke to try and fill the voids there. But the question's always going to be with them, starting pitching. Do they have enough? Is Brandon Woodruff good enough to be the front of that rotation? Do they have the depth in that rotation so that they're not going to that very good bullpen every night for 4+ innings, because even in a 60-game schedule, that is going to wear your bullpen out. The Cardinals, they're coming off a somewhat humiliating end to their season, getting swept in the NLCS, by the Washington Nationals. Lost Ozuna, Waka, and Martinez in the offseason, but added some pitching, especially with the Japanese export in Kwang-Hum Kim to add to their rotation options. But the question with them, with the lineup, who's going to replace Ozuna as that protection for Paul Goldschmidt? Matt Carpenter coming off a disappointing year where now people are looking at him as a platoon guy, maybe just a DH. Can he have a rebound year? What's the health of Andrew Miller, their big free agent signing for the bullpen 2 years ago? Injury-ridden season for him last year, a couple stints on the DL. And you're not going to have that safety net in the pen because Carlos Martinez is returning to the rotation. It's a rotation that has Jack Flaherty as well as an older Adam Wainwright, who should be helped by this time off here, now only requiring him to, instead of throw 200 innings, maybe you only get about 65 innings out of him this year. So, Cardinals always interested. They're always in the mix. My questions really rely on the other two teams in this division that people think can be competitive. Forget about the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're going to be the doormat of these teams this year. They're rebuilding. They're going to be a couple of years away after trading Marte and with Chris Archer opting out. My question is with the Cubs and the Reds. What are they going to be? Because, the Cubs, new manager and David Ross, lost some pieces in Zobrist and Cole Hamels, and didn't really make a big splash for on-the-field improvements during the offseason. Now, they are helped out by the fact that their core is still good, still young, but let's face it, we're starting to get to that point where they're going to have to start paying these guys. And I'm not talking about arbitration raises. I'm talking extensions. Baez is coming close to needing an extension. Chris Bryant's a free agent after next year. Anthony Rizzo can be a free agent after this year. Contreras is going to be entering free agency for the first time. Schwarber is getting closer to free agency. They're coming close to being that team that maybe left some championships on the table. I heard the comparison on, I want to get this right, I believe it was Bruce Shine on MLB Network made this comparison last week, comparing them to the 80s Mets, who were a fantastic offensive team with a big-time ace, but clearly because of, the lack of postseason spots and maybe some of their off-field endeavors, shall we say, left a couple of titles on the field back in the late 80s, as most of us would realize. So that, and let's face it, they didn't add to that rotation. And that rotation is not spring chickens. John Lester's 36 years old, and man, as time flown by, we've watched this guy grow up in front of our eyes. Yu Darvish is 33 and making a ridiculous contract. His contract is as bad as the contract they gave to Hayward a couple of years back. Difference being Hayward, was the motivational speaker to get them over the hump to win a World Series. So it's almost now or never time for the Cubs, and coming off a disappointing year, where they dealt with some injuries like everyone else, but their closer killed them. Craig Kimbrell was awful after they signed him. Hopefully for his sake, he can get back on track, and after a full off season, real off season, getting ready for a spring training and then the time off here before summer camp, he can get back to the Craig Kimbrell he was in Boston. And then you got the Reds, who are somewhat annoying, somewhat, tick me off. Because I say that because, not because, that they have any big rivalry, not because they have anybody on their team that I truly can't stand. But I'm usually the last person that jumps on these bandwagons, that jumps on that, oh, look at this team. They were the team that made all the moves in the offseason. Here we go. This is the guys. They are the ones that are going to be, ready to go, should we say. And, look what happens. Sometimes you get those teams that, that they turn out to be the spring training darlings and perform up to task. And sometimes they're total letdowns. So we don't know about the Reds because, they add Moustakas, they add Nick Castellanos, Wade Miley as a fourth starter, add to the bullpen, which was already a strength for them with Pedro Strop. But, you got a solid rotation in Castillo, Bauer, Gray, add Miley into the mix there. Probably go with the young guy for the fifth spot. But, Joey Votto, who's well regarded around the league, loved because of he's a sabermetric darling. He's 36 years old. We're getting to that point where his career almost could turn out to be a waste if the Reds don't get something done soon. Especially, they last made the playoffs in 2013. It's been, 8 long years since they made the playoffs. I mean, you know what was going on in 2013? All right, let's see. Gas was almost $3. Trump hadn't thought about becoming president yet. Taylor Swift was still singing country music. Let's see. I was dealing with an injured shoulder and lost way too much weight. And, that's pretty much what was going on in 2013. That's, believe it or not, boys and girls, that was a long time ago. So, it's finally time. The Reds, they can make all the moves they want, but it's time to do something on the field. And, I talked about them being a competitive division, but to me, what's still the best division in the National League is the National League East. You have the reigning, defending World Series champion Washington Nationals, who are bringing back pretty much the same team. They did lose Rendon. That going to the Angels, that could hurt them a little bit. They're going to be relying on a kid named Carter K-Boom to replace him. See how, or Killaboom, I believe it's pronounced. Going to be relying on him to fill the void there at third base. But you still got very good young stars there in Juan Soto, in Trey Turner, Victor Robles. Guys that are going to carry this team in the future. Still got the strong front three in that rotation with Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin. But there's, of course, questions with the bullpen. Sean Doolittle has been in and out on whether or not he wants to opt out of this season. Was Daniel Hudson a fluke with them last year? Now they added Will Harris to that bullpen from the Astros, and as we've seen over time, adding free agent relievers can be hit or miss at times. And they are dealing with their leader, their face of their franchise, Ryan Zimmerman, opting out for the season. So they're going to have to fill that void at first base there. That opens the door for Eric Thames get some playing time there. They added my guy Starlin Castro to that team. So still a very good team, but they have things to deal with. The other three teams in this division, along with the Nationals, is going to be about, can they beat up on the Marlins 10 times when they play them, because the Marlins continued this endless rebuild. Feel bad for my guy, the captain, Don Mattingly, but thankfully Jeets didn't make any captain on captain crimes during the offseason and didn't fire him, because that would have been as undeserving a firing as you can have. But you look at the other three teams in this division: Mets, Phillies, and Braves. The Mets, it sounded like I ripped them a lot last week. It sounded like I didn't give them a fair shake. This is a good team. They lost Wheeler and Frazier during the offseason, but now this opens up a real spot for Jeff McNeil in the infield, because, let's face it, he's not an outfielder. He's a good soldier about it, and he's okay with moving around a little bit, but he should be in the infield, whether it be at second base or third base. So, you get to move him back there. They made some additions with the rotation with Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha on one-year contracts. Broke my heart the 2 days before Christmas and added the longtime Yankee Dylan Betances to that bullpen. A bullpen that, I talked about that they always make what looks like the right bullpen move, but never get any luck out of it. So what they're going to need with the bullpen is they're going to need Betances to be healthy, and you need one of Diaz or Familia, both guys who were atrocious last year, had ERAs bordering 6 at times during last season. They need at least one of those guys to have a rebound and be what they were. Whether you get the Diaz from his Seattle days, or you get the Familia pre trading him to the A's, the Familia he was during his first go-around with the Mets, because he was a pretty damn good reliever. Had you sitting on your hands at times panicking, but he got the job done on most nights, because you know what you're going to get out of Seth Lugo, although he does want to be a starter so badly. You know what you'll get out of Justin Wilson when healthy. So on paper, they have a chance to be a pretty good bullpen. But you got to see with them, their new manager, Luis Rojas, never managed in big leagues before. Thankfully, it sounds like DeGrom's back is fine through a scrimmage yesterday at Citi Field. But how's the rest of that rotation? I talked about last week, Marcus Stroman, big year for him. He's going to be a free agent, and he's got to back up his big talk that he always seems to have. And then you got to get at least 2 of the other 3 guys to step up and have a back of their baseball card type season for him. I think Porcello will be pretty good, but who will be that other guy, Wacha or Matz? The problem with them in the rotation, they have 0 depth. Losing Syndergaard hurt this team when it comes to a depth standpoint, because if one of these guys goes down, you're either dragging Lugo out of the bullpen, which I'm sure he wouldn't mind, or you're going to be going to someone like Corey Oswalt, or I think Walter Lockett is still hanging around somewhere. But that's the likes of guys that you're going to if you're going to fill a void on this Mets rotation. So, and Pete Alonso, how's he going to do in his second year in the big leagues? He's not going to hit 50 home runs again, obviously, but can he hit home runs at this same per at bat rate as he was doing last year to carry this team offensively? A lineup that looks good on paper, but Cespedes has got to just be the DH the full year, because he can't move. Robinson Cano has to have a big bounce back year, especially with the fact that everybody loves the prospect they sent to Seattle for him. So there's that with the Mets. The Phillies also getting a new manager with bringing in the great Joe Girardi. They signed Didi, signed Zach Wheeler, added some depth, veteran depth through minor league deals, but got to see how Harper is in his second full year in the big league in Philadelphia. And as good as that rotation is, I think they're the second best rotation in the division, with Nola, with a healthy Arrieta, with Zach Wheeler. See what you get out of Vince Velasquez and this young kid that they're talking about, Spencer Howard. Now, that bullpen's atrocious. They're without Robertson. They're without Sir Anthony Dominguez. So what are they gonna? How are they gonna close out games? That's gonna be the big key in Philly. And I know the Braves have won the division each of the last 2 years. I'm not loving the vibe that I'm getting from the Braves right now. There's too much going wrong with them. They lost Donaldson and Keuchel in the off season, and they're expecting to go with this young kid, Austin Riley, at third base, and a little bit of Camargo as well. But they're not going to be able to fully fill the power void that Donaldson left. He was the leader of that team last year. To replace Keuchel, they signed Cole Hamels, but he's still dealing with the tricep injury from back in spring training. He's not going to be ready to go in time. They added Ozuna to add some power to that outfield. Added Will Smith to improve the bullpen, but he's dealing with COVID right now. He hasn't been able to pass the protocols to get back with the team yet, and is not going to be ready to return at the end of this week against the Mets. Freddie Freeman just rejoined this team, and if you heard the details about that, I mean, your heart goes out to the guy. The fact that he had 104.5 fever in the beginning of it, and there was one day when he was even thinking, please don't take me. I mean, that's just depressing to hear. It's that a couple of guys opted out, with Felix Hernandez, who was looking to reinvigorate his career. Nick Markakis, who's not a spring chicken anymore, deciding to opt out as well. There's just too much bad vibe with this team right now for me to think that they're going to be a playoff team. So I'm going to take another day or two to discuss who I think is going to be the wild card teams. But when it comes down to it, I look at, as of right now, with these National League divisions. In the East, I'm going to go with an order of Nationals, Mets, Phillies, Braves, Marlins. In the Central, going to go with the Brewers, the Cardinals, the Cubs, because I don't have much faith in them. The Reds, I need to see it to believe it, and the Pirates in that order. And then the West, until someone steps up and says, hey, we're here, we're coming for you, Dodgers. They're the favorite in the National League. I got Dodgers, then Diamondbacks, Padres, Rockies, and Giants. And I'll figure out by Wednesday who I'm picking to be the wild card teams. But the Dodgers, they're the favorite in the National League. Let's see if they can, and for a reason, let's see if they can live up to that expectation and get back to another World Series. All right, going to take a break here and get a little drink here because I've been talking for 30 minutes straight. But when I come back on the other side, we'll do the American League. Continue keeping sports with M3. This is better. Okay, let's get this going. Got the last segment saved. Get that out of here. Okay, break it down. Where did I put my water? I need my water. Hold on. There's my water. Gotta remain hydrated. Keep the vocal cords from drying out there, people. All right. I would like to say, though, this has been very therapeutic. Still, even though it's weird, the last 4 months doing the podcast from home, not having the microphone in front of me, not having any of my same audio to be able to edit and whatnot. It's been mind-saving to still have all of this stuff here and be able to do the podcast, just because who knows when CSB is going to reopen. Hopefully they do. And, so I'm able to, do the podcast from there and get things back going again. But we'll see when that turns out to be, if it happens to be. All right, let's get this going now for the next segment. Welcome back to Keeping It Sports with M3. Hope you're all enjoying your Monday afternoon here. Now, we went rather long with talking about the National League. We got to be fair, give the same attention to the junior circuit, the American League here, with all three divisions, all interesting races here, especially, the American League West has a chance to be a competitive division. And that's not saying the Astros are going to be bad. The Astros, on paper, should still be very good. They did lose Garrett Cole, did lose Will Harris, so that's a the big piece in their rotation. I thought he was the best pitcher on the team the last 2 years. Lost a big piece from their bullpen, and as well, they had all of the headaches swirling them in the offseason, rightfully so, with the sign-stealing scandal. The only real big move they made were firing their manager and general manager and bringing in Dusty Baker as the replacement at manager. And the lineup is still very good, still one of the better ones in baseball, but it does hurt losing Garrett Cole, does hurt a little bit for that bullpen, a bullpen that I didn't really love to begin with. Already they're dealing with their own COVID-related issues as well, because Joe Smith, one of their important pieces in that pen, hasn't yet reported, and it's unsure if he's opting out on the season or not. And not that I'm expecting the Astros to be bad. The problem with them is here in a 60-game season. Now, I know it usually takes a while for the A's to get going. They usually get off to these slow starts in April and May, and we're thinking, they're going to be a seller at the deadline, and then all of a sudden around June 15th, they take off, and they're one of the better teams in the sport and sneak in as a wild card team. But the the A's, if they could ever get off to a fast start, this is a year for them. This is a year for them to overtake the Astros in that division. Still got one of the better managers in baseball running that team, and they're not a team that's going to spend a lot of money. The most significant move of the offseason was adding Jake Diekman, re-signing him, and they're taking a chance on a lot of guys when it comes to guys on minor league deals, hoping to find that hidden gem there, that diamond in the rough. Did lose 3 guys in their rotation, but that is going to be helped out because they're filling those voids with young kids, young pitchers that people really like in AJ Puck and Jesus Luzardo. And what helps them this year is the fact that with Puck, with Luzardo, hell, even Sean Manaea in his first full year back off Tommy John surgery, or shoulder surgery, I think it was, no innings limits. Let them go. Ride them out. You're not going to have to worry about holding them to 150, 160 innings like you would normally. You're not going to have to worry as long as having to give them breaks and call on the cavalry. As long as they're healthy, as long as they're pitching well, let them go. And that's going to be a big boost for this team. And these 2 kids, they have big upside. They're 2 of the more well-regarded pitching prospects in the league. We saw them come up last year and have a big impact in September out of that bullpen. And now we'll see what they're going to do as full-time members of this starting rotation for them now going into the future. Texas Rangers were a team that last year they got off to a hot start, but when the summer months came upon us, kind of fell apart there in Chris Woodward's first full year as the manager, but made some moves in the offseason, traded for Corey Kluber of the Indians, who's coming up on a free agent year here. He wants to get paid. Signed Todd Frazier as a good veteran for that locker room. Also added Kyle Gibson to the rotation on the same deal that they gave Lance Lynn 2 years ago, 3 years, $30 million. Question with them is, it's disappointing that they're not going to have fans because they're opening that brand new ballpark there in Arlington. But can they be a surprise team? Can they take the magic they had in the first half last year now with adding Kluber to that team, adding Gibson to that rotation as well to go along with Lance Lynn? Can they be a surprise team in the American League West? Now, the team everyone's always waiting on is the Anaheim Angels. I'm not gonna waste my time calling them that other name because we know that they're not that. All right, you play in Orange County. All right, not Hollywood. Stop. Stop insulting our intelligence with that one. Okay, but they made the big move for Rendon, added that to a lineup with Trout. With Ohtani at DH there. The question with them is always going to be, can they get starting pitching? Ohtani's going to be back as a pitcher this year. Can he be a guy that starts once every 5 days, or are they going to go with this once-a-week nonsense? Part of the reason why I've always said that at some point they got to make a decision with him. They got to figure out, is he a pitcher or is he going to be a position player / DH. This whole two-way player thing, I've never bought into it, and I believe a lot of this led to him tearing his elbow. The fact that he's getting no rest, no true rest in between his starts, and after going out there throwing 100 pitches, it can't be doing him much good. DHing every day and trying to swing the bat as hard as humanly possible. And then, of course, there's the Mariners, who figured to be the runt of the litter in that division. But a division where the Astros are the favorites, but watch out for the A's and Let's see if the Texas Rangers can be a kind of a sleeper team there. Then you got the AL Central. AL Central won last year by the Twins, but once again, a heartbreaking, or should we say, no, heartbreaking for them, but to be expected ending, because it keeps happening to them. I can't explain it. I really can't. How it is that every time this millennium that they make the playoffs, with the exception of 2006, every time they make the playoffs, they always run into the New York Yankees. It's a weird phenomenon that no one can explain. And now they made a lot of moves this offseason that added 3 starters to their rotation with Maeda, Hill, and Homer Bailey, all on 1-year deals. Made the big splash, added Josh Donaldson to what was already a strong lineup, a team that led the league in home runs last year, set a major league record in home runs, well north of 300. Now Sano will move to first base. You still got Cruz there in the outfield. Still got a bunch of good young power hitters. But the question with them, they got a good lineup. The bullpen is quality. But the question with them that's always going to hang over them is their starting pitching. And not just starting pitching in the regular season, because they got enough to get through the regular season. Even with losing Kyle Gibson and the 3 veterans, you got Jose Barrios, who's very talented, but we're waiting for him to take that next step and become the true ace to this team. Can this pitching win in October? And until I see otherwise, until I see it happen, you'll see the sports gods have a funny way of just giving you the middle finger and hanging over you for a long time to come. Until something's different, you know that they're going to continue to see the Yankees in the playoffs. Whether it's in the ALDS, whether it's the wild card game, hell, even if they get past the first round and those 2 teams happen to meet up in the ALCS, can they get past the New York Yankees? Do they have the pitching to beat the Yankees in the playoffs? And you look at it in their history, the Yankees are 15-2 against them in playoff games. The only pitcher to defeat them in a postseason game is Johan Santana, and he ain't walking through that door. So, that's the key with them. They can hit as many home runs as they want, but can they get over this ghost that hangs over them in the Yankees? But to do that, they're going to have to get through the rest of the Central that, the Indians, people forget the Indians actually won 93 games last year. They were a competitive team. It feels like they weren't, but they were in the mix the entire way, even with losing Kluber for 2 months there. And the time off here helped them because it looked like that. Hold on, I just had a call here. Just gotta save this and continue recording. There we go. It looked like before the time off that they were going to be without Mike Clevenger. He had a surgery done during spring training, wasn't going to be ready to go at least the first month of the season. Well, now this break gave him time to get healthy. And even without Kluber, they still got a good young rotation here. You got Carrasco, who hopefully he is 100%. He's, beat the leukemia he dealt with last year and is back to the Carrasco we have seen in previous years. Got Clevenger. Got Shane Bieber, who was a guy that emerged last year. Zach Plesac was a pleasant surprise for them as well, amongst some other kids in the rotation. They got a good enough rotation, but they got the glowing question hanging over their head as far as the future of Francisco Lindor. He's going to be a free agent after next year. And as time continues to go on here, that's going to continue to hang over them. That's going to continue to be a story that A, everybody talks about, and B, the longer it goes, the less valuable he is to another team, because he's a top 10 player in baseball, but no one's going to give you the level of prospects you want for having him just for 1 year. So that's a kind of bind that the Indians are in here, because they've never been able to lock him up to that long-term extension like they were able to do with Jose Ramirez at such a young age. Now, just like we talked about with the Reds in the National League Central, the White Sox are hoping to be that darling that everyone talked about in the offseason, and they emerge as that new team, that it team here in 2020, with adding Dallas Keuchel and Gio Gonzalez to that rotation, spending big money on Yasmani Grandal, adding Edwin Diaz as their DH, to go along with that young talent that they got on this team, Tim Anderson, Mancada, the young kid Luis Roberts, who they gave an extension to before he even plays a game. But they did have to deal with a hit here before things got started, because they were expecting Michael Kopech, the young flamethrower right-hander we saw 2 years ago, coming back off Tommy John surgery. They were expecting him to be ready to go here, but unfortunately he also decided to opt out on this season, and now what's even worse is he's dealing with all sorts of anxiety issues, depression problems, which, say a prayer for the guy. Hopefully he can get that under control his demons, and he comes back next year ready to go, ready to be the stud that they expected for this team. But I was excited to see him. That's a major loss for this team, but still good rotation there. Add Keuchel and Gonzalez to go along with Lucas Giolito in that rotation. Go along with Rondon in the rotation, as well as a couple, one or two other young guys. They got a chance this year to be a good team. They got to get off to a fast start. That when you're a young team, your confidence can sway very easily. Get off to a bad start, that especially in a 60-game season, that can kill you in the first 10 days. Get off to a strong start. These guys start believing in themselves, start saying that, hey, we could do it, especially when you're in a division with the Tigers and the Royals, who seem to be in rebuild mode and both looking like bottom dwellers once again this year. And we finish up the American League preview with, of course, the division we all love, the division most of you out there hate, the American League East, where the big boys come to play. You know what it's about. That's baseball for us. When you think baseball, you think American League East of baseball, where if you're soft, you might as well go home, because you got teams to deal with in this division. Teams, led by your 27-time World Series champion and defending AL East champion, New York Yankees. That's right, I'm a homer here. It's Homer Central. It's the Yankee propaganda portion of the podcast, and why not? I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I'm geared up for 7 o'clock on Thursday night. Garrett Cole versus Max Scherzer. Let's go. It's been way too long. You know what Garrett Cole is? Garrett Cole is like getting that Christmas present that you forget about, and then all of a sudden 4 months goes by and it's like, oh yeah, we got him. Now, not gonna lie, it does hurt losing Luis Severino to Tommy John surgery, but hey, this time off it did wonders for this team, because if things started up in April like normal, you would not have had Aaron Judge, probably not Giancarlo Stanton, Definitely not Aaron Hicks, who now will become the first Major League player to not miss a game after having Tommy John surgery, thanks to this delay in the schedule here. But, you look at this team, across the board, they're very strong. Deep bullpen, even with losing Chapman for the first couple weeks due to COVID. You plug in Britt in there in the closer role. Still got Ottavino, Canely, Green in that rotation with with the bullpen, with some young kids. A strong rotation here that's looked really good. And I know it's summer camp, I know it's scrimmages, but Cole looks firing to go. Paxton is healthy. Got this unfortunate scare a couple weeks ago with Tanaka, but looks like he'll only miss his first turn through the rotation before being an option for this team. See what you get from Jay Happ, from Jordan Montgomery. You hope one of them's good, although a lot of people are impressed with Montgomery so far in this camp. And across the board, this is a strong team here. Hell, you got players that aren't even going to make this team. Guys like Mike Ford, Clint Frazier, Thairo Estrada, that got time last year. They'll be ready to be that next man up once again if there's an injury or someone, God forbid, gets sick here. So across the board, this is a strong team. This is my pick to win the AL East. This is my pick to win the American League. But, I talk about the American League East, big boy baseball here. And there's two strong teams that they got to deal with. The Rays, I don't like the Rays offense. They added Hunter Renfroe, added this slugger from Japan, Yoshi Tatsuzuko, I believe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And that you don't expect them to be a bunch of thumpers, but they always usually get enough offense to support that good pitching staff. You can't deny it. I mean, I was ticked off a lot during the negotiations at the gall of Blake Snell to say we're taking a pay cut. But hey, he's a very good pitcher. Won the Cy Young 2 years ago. Charlie Morton, you know what you're going to get out of him. For the Rays' sake, you hope that Glass now is healthy for this team after missing so much time last year. They got one of the better bullpens in baseball. They can go almost as deep as the Yankees can out in the bullpen. This is a good team. It's about the offense with them. Are they going to win enough of those, 4-3 kind of games to get themselves back into the playoffs? The other team that is a threat in that division, I bet you thinking I'm going to bring up the Boston Red Sox. Hell no. Are you kidding? The Boston Red Sox? Are you kidding? The Boston Red Sox will be lucky to win 25 games this 60-game season. I mean, are you looking at this rotation right now? This rotation on paper is a joke. Martin Perez, Nathan Eovaldi, Brian Johnson, someone named Ryan Weber, and Matt Hall. You got Eduardo Rodriguez. Unfortunately, he continues to deal with symptoms of COVID-19. Chris Sale had Tommy John surgery in spring training. They traded Mookie Betts. Still have a pretty good lineup there with Benintendi, with Martinez, with Xander Bogaerts, with the young kid over there at third base. Still, solid lineup there for this team. But they're going to have to, for this team to be competitive, they're going to have to win a whole bunch of 12-10 kind of games, especially in that ballpark. And I don't believe that this rotation can hold up, can survive. I mean, as bad as their rotation is, their bullpen's even worse. It would be of anything to go on this year. The Red Sox, not just being competitive, but being in the mix for the playoffs would be the biggest stunner in the world to me. I'm talking about the team that's going to be finishing ahead of them, and that's going to be a pest, not just now, but in the years to come, the Toronto Blue Jays. That's right. Last year we saw the emergence of all those young kids, those second-generation players in Biggio, in Bichette, of course, Vlad Guerrero Jr., in the other Gurriel in the outfield. They added Justin Smoke, Travis, or lost Justin Smoke, should I say, but they added Hyun-Jin Ryu to the rotation. Tanner Roark replaced Justin Smoke with Travis Shaw, added Panic as a backup infielder on this team. This is a good team. You got Vlad Guerrero Jr. moving to first base. Got all these young players in their second full year. Got the jitters of being rookies in the big leagues out of the way. A potentially good rotation with Rio, the young kid that everyone loves in Nate Peterson, and with Tanner Roark. I still think maybe they're one pitcher away, one veteran pitcher in there away from being good, and we'll see about their bullpen. The only big question I got with this team: where the hell are they playing? We are 9 days away from their first home game, and they don't have a home site to play at. You're talking about them either playing in Pittsburgh, maybe playing some home games on the road. Dunedin, Florida is out of the option because of the spike going on down there, and they don't want to play in Buffalo because they don't have the major league level facilities there. So that's the big concern I have with the Blue Jays, but that they could be that sleeper team. They could be that team that hot start, keep the rotation healthy, and they could be creeping up on the Rays, maybe even being a pain in the ass to the Yankees this year, because they're going to be a pain in the ass to deal with in the years to come when it comes to the American League East, especially if they can develop some young pitching here to help this team in the long run. But you look at the American League across the board. In the West, although the A's are going to creep up, I still think the Astros deserve to be the favorite there. So I'll go in this order: Astros, A's in second, Rangers in third, Angels in fourth because they got no pitching, and the Mariners in a lowly fifth as they continue their rebuild. The Central, I wouldn't be surprised if the Indians win it, but I'll take the Twins. With all the moves they made, their rotation is fully healthy. Would not have been the case with Rich Hill at the start of a normal season, but they got a little bit of a break there, and they add Donaldson to the mix. So the Twins will narrowly edge out the Indians. I could see them being a wild card team in the mix there. The White Sox, I still think they're 1 year away. I don't think they're completely ready. Get Kopech back next year, and they'll be a playoff team, with the Royals and Tigers finishing in the cellar. And then, of course, the big boys, AL East, you know what it's about, baby. The New York Yankees will win that division over the Rays. The Rays will be in the mix for a wild card. The Toronto Blue Jays as well will be. I will say this, the Blue Jays, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs, but they'll finish in third place, a distant third ahead of the Boston Red Sox. They'll be closer to the Rays than the Red Sox will be to them. But the Blue Jays, at the very least, in the last 10 days of this season, will be in the mix, will be in the running for a wild card spot. We've got the Red Sox in fourth, and then, of course, the continuing rebuilding Orioles in fifth place. And that's my predictions as far as the seeding or division rankings go for this season. I'll have full playoff predictions and all this coming up by Wednesday over on Facebook.com/KeepingSportsWithM3. Now my voice is getting tired out, so I'm going to take one last break here, get a quick drink, but come back on the other side. We'll finish things up with some football thoughts mixed in there with some extensions, one extension that didn't happen, and more chaos in Washington, almost as much as the chaos going on down in that big White House down there. So continue keeping sports with M3. one more minute. Hold on. I'll finish this up. All right. Let's finish this up for this one. All right, welcome back to Keeping It Sports with M3. A few more minutes left here before close down for the day. Now, one thing I didn't get to, I want to get to this. Now, we've seen a lot of tone-deaf comments in the last couple months on the sports side. We'll keep it there. Blake Snell talking about pay cuts at a time where over 40 million Americans are filing for unemployment, and hundreds of thousands of people losing their lives, as well as now close to 4 million total COVID cases across the country. Countless others. Adam Silver saying that we're coming back for the good of the country. I'm like, no, you're not. You're coming back for the money. Who are you fooling? But I saw the most tone-deaf sports-related comment last week, and it comes on behalf of Houston Astros pitching coach Brent Strom, who did a Zoom conference call with the Astros media last Tuesday, and he had the unmitigated gall to say that he feels that the Astros were cheated out of the 2019 World Series because of a missed call in Game 7. And where he's referring to is in the 7th inning with the Astros leading 2-1, 1 out, Greinke facing Juan Soto, and on a 2-1 pitch, a curveball that looked like it was in the zone was called a ball. Soto would eventually walk, and that would lead to the go-ahead home run in that 7th inning. I believe it was by Howie Kendrick, who hit that off of the foul pole. And he says, quote, "I think it changed the entire World Series. Otherwise, we'd be wearing World Series rings with Cole coming in the 8th and 9th inning, and we'd have another ring. I hold on to grudges." Quote. Really? You're gonna have the unmitigated gall to sit here and tell everyone you were cheated out of a World Series. Are you kidding me? We all know this. The Astros, there's teams that are benefiting from the COVID delay because of players injured on their team, getting players healthy. The Yankees with some of their outfielders, the Indians with Mike Clevenger, the Astros as well, and they have benefited the most from all of this. First off, Verlander wouldn't have been ready to go the first several weeks of the season. Probably wouldn't have been back until May after a surgery he had in spring training. So now he's healthy and ready to go. But let's think about prior to this COVID world we live in, what was set to happen. Now, everyone in the sport hated the Astros because of the cheating they did to win the 2017 World Series with the sign stealing. The fact that, how arrogant they were about it with Verlander's comments at the Baseball Awards dinner back in January. Their weak-ass apologies on the opening of spring training with Altuve and Bregman reading off of a sheet, not seeming sincere at all. Bregman at FanFest laughing about it, thinking that it was some joke. Correa getting in back and forth with Cody Bellinger through the media about all of this. Then they face the music in the locker room, and Verlander, Mr. Baseball, whenever something else happens with another team, he can't wait to talk. Seemed like he was a deer in the headlights when getting asked that. And then their owner having the gall to say that, I don't believe that this affected the outcome of the 2017 World Series. All of that, it was going to lead to total anarchy in baseball because you had 29 other teams that were going to be waiting for their shot at the Astros. In particular, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Cleveland Indians. All of the top teams were looking to face the Astros. You had pitchers around the league making threats through social media, like Mike Clevenger saying, got to go to the gym, make sure I still have my fastball ready. You were going to see benches clearing brawls all across this season with people looking to retaliate against the Astros. And now, unfortunately, that doesn't look like it's going to happen unless the Dodgers decide to take things into their own hands and get some form of retaliation along the way here. No, they got very lucky that they're not going to truly have to face the music here. And unfortunately, it sucks as a sports fan, because if the league wasn't going to suspend them, the players should have been able to take their own rightful shots at punishing the Astros. So I don't want to hear Strom saying that, no, we got cheated out of our second championship, because you cheated to get your first championship. Read the room, pal. Realize that you're so lucky that Rob Manfred didn't take that trophy and strip your players of their championship rings. Now on to football. All right. Last week was a deadline for teams to lock up players that they put the franchise tag on. You saw that the Titans at the last hour give extension to Derrick Henry, 4 years for $50 million. The Chiefs, when it looked like Chris Jones was going to hold out, gave him a big 4-year, $85 million extension, guaranteeing him $62 million of that. Hell, the Browns, I don't even think they needed to do it yet, but they gave Myles Garrett a 5-year, $125 million extension, gave him the most guaranteed money for a defensive player in history. And listen, we all criticize Myles Garrett for what he did, rightfully so. He lost his damn mind and deserved his punishment. I was cool with it only just being the remainder of the season. Come back this year on a clean slate there. But let's not let that one moment define the guy as a person, his career. It was bad. It was awful. That was one of the worst things we've seen on a football field. And there were some members of the media that kind of overreacted, saying maybe he should be arrested. Can't remember if I said that back then. But, by all accounts, he seems like a good dude. Seems like a charitable dude. Is beloved there in Cleveland, even more so than Baker Mayfield. People out there rave about him as a person. So, I got no problem with them giving him this deal. Problem I got is the deals that weren't done. One, of course, Jamal Adams still sitting there waiting for contract extension. I know the Jets don't have to pay him yet, but it would add a little bit of good vibe for a team that is fixing to go 4-12, 5-11 this year. In a year where Adam Gase is hopefully coaching for his coaching life, and where they're not going to have any fans at their games, at least to start, as was announced a couple hours ago in a joint statement with the Giants. Now, how is it that the Cleveland Browns can pay Myles Garrett, and they're paying at least 10 other guys over 8 figures on that team, whereas the Jets, the only guys that they're paying 10 figures to are C.J. Mosley and Le'Veon Bell, and they can't get Jamal Adams his extension, a guy who's the best safety in the league. And listen, he's been a pain in the ass the last couple months. I understand it from a financial standpoint. He wants to get paid. I've been annoyed with this, the fact that he's seemingly trying to get himself off the team at all costs, and it is willing to go to good teams without getting that contract extension. So it's either pay me to be on a bad team or send me to a good team just to make me happy, so I can get off this sinking Titanic here. But he's one of the only things to be hopeful for and watch when it comes to the New York Jets. He's one of the favorite players on the team by many of the fan base. And I think it would set a good vibe with this team if you give him a contract extension. The other guy, of course, the more notable extension that wasn't given out was to Dak Prescott, who the Cowboys placed franchise tag on him back in March. And as it would turn out, that has been the last time that they even talked about a contract. There has been little to no discussions between the two sides, and weren't able to get a deal done before the 4 o'clock deadline. And it was on a couple of fronts here. Dak, he was being offered $33 million per year with $100 million guaranteed. And he wanted a 4-year contract. Jerry Jones, when he's done these extensions, has always given guys a 5-year contract. So that was a big holdup. Also, as from what I'm hearing at least, it was $100 million guaranteed, $33 million a year. But it was going to be the same total value and same guarantees for whether it was a 4-year or a 5-year deal. So the only difference that Jerry wanted to do was, if it was 4 years, 4 times 33, that's 132, with guarantees $100 million. That's what Dak was looking at, wanted to get. In fact, I think him and his agent wanted somewhere between $35 and $38 million a year. Well, Jerry only wanted to cut down on the money per year and space that out over 5 years, because he's given out contract extension to his running back, Ezekiel Elliott, which was the highest paid running back at the time of the extension. Gave contract extensions to DeMarcus Lawrence and Jalen Smith. They weren't as strong as they were the previous season last year. When he paid each of his offensive linemen, they were the highest paid player at their position. Travis Frederick did end up retiring during this offseason. They paid Amari Cooper, making him the second highest paid wide receiver in the league. And now he wants his quarterback to be the one to take the haircut. No. Listen, I've always been the one that has been in saying that, not all quarterbacks are the same. I don't like this next man up philosophy that the media has when it comes to these quarterbacks that do a contract, because not everybody is Mahomes, Rodgers, Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Drew Brees, Lamar when he gets his extension next year. What Peyton Manning was and Tom Brady were back in the day. You remember when the 4 big guys were Brady, Manning, Brees, and Rodgers, and you're seeing the second and third tier guys getting paid like they were first tier guys. I'm like, no, not everybody's first tier. Not everybody deserves to get that kind of payday. But you know what? Blame it on your fellow owners. They paid those kind of contracts to those undeserving quarterbacks at the time. The likes of your now backup quarterback Andy Dalton, likes of Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo getting $27.5 million a year. That was the going rate for the quarterbacks and it continues to go up. It's not going to go down, and you can't expect your guy to now have it start going down, especially when you were always willing to pay Romo. You were always willing to make him one of the top 5 paid quarterbacks in the league. And now you're not willing to do the same with Dak, who's in 4 years, he's now probably done more than Tony did in 10. Doesn't seem fair to me. It really doesn't. And I'm 100% on Team Dak here when it comes to this. Just play it out, bro. Ball out this season. Have a big year for this team. Statistically, failed to make the playoffs in week 17, so I can see all the Cowboy fans crying on social media, and then you get franchise tagged again and pull the Kirk Cousins. Continue doing this until until either the Cowboys pay you or someone else gives you that big time deal. Now, the last thing I want to get to before I go here is the controversy going on in our nation's capital with the Washington football team. And there were rumblings for the last week about a big story set to be released by the Washington Post. And you're wondering what the hell was going on there. Something that was, and it didn't sound good. And this was just days after they made the announcement that they were retiring the nickname and the logo. First, you see a report come out on Thursday that their radio play-by-play guy for the last 20 years, Larry Michael, was retiring, and that seems strange into itself because the man's only in his late 50s and he's retiring. Well, then comes out the report the next day that 15 women were alleging sexual harassment and verbal abuse by former team employees at the team's stadium. And these women range from interns, from women that covered the team, to, I think there were former cheerleaders in the mix when it came to these allegations, and there were 3 men cited as far as allegations against them. One was the aforementioned Larry Michael, and then also mentioned in there were Alex Santos and Richard Mann the second, who also resigned from their positions with the team in the past week. You saw complaints such as made against Michael, where in 2018 he made comments about the attractiveness of a college-aged intern into a live microphone. Then there was Hino Walker, who filed a complaint with the team alleging that Santos had pinched her and told her that she had an ass like a weapon. And Walker, she covers the team for The Athletic, and just looking at some of these allegations, like, what the hell? I mean, the organization is disgusting on the field. They got a disgusting owner who refused to change the name for so long. But now that you got all of this going on in this organization, at one point you're disgusted, but on the other end, you're like, why should we really be surprised? This is the now formerly Washington Redskins we're talking about here, and they are putting together an investigation. You got a D.C. attorney, Beth Wilkinson, conducting an investigation to review the culture, policies, and allegations of workplace misconduct, and an internal investigation. Now, hopefully the NFL steps in and does their own investigation as well, because you can't just trust and rely upon the NFL, the team to do their own investigation, even if it is with a person from the outside, but within the community. You also seen this allegation by a former Vice President of Communications there, Julie Payne, who said, quote, "I have never been in a more hostile, manipulative, passive-aggressive environment and I worked in politics. That is saying a lot there. Now, none of the allegations are directly connected to Daniel Snyder, but it is also described in the article, quote, as him creating a sophomore culture of verbal abuse. And no, you look at this and you're like, another black eye on this franchise, another act, a disgusting act when it comes to this team. I mean, they've been embarrassing on the field. They've had heartbreaking moments on the field, whether it be Theismann, Alex Smith. We've gone through them. RG3, plenty of things. They haven't been a playoff team in a while now. But this just tops the cake. And listen, unfortunately, I think there's probably more of this going on in professional sports than we even realize. This is only the one that comes to the surface. But if you're the NFL, don't you got to step in here and force Snyder out of here? Because he's been nothing but an embarrassment to this league and this organization since he bought the team 20 years ago. And look at it now with all that's happened. Let's face it, he didn't change the name because he started to have a conscience all of a sudden. He changed it because all of the investors, all of the backers were starting, like Amazon and Walmart and whatnot, we're going to say, all right, we're going to pull ourselves from this. FedEx, they didn't want the name on the stadium anymore if he was going to keep up this charade. Now you're seeing 3 minority owners that have a controlling interest of 40%, want to sell their share in ownership. That they've all entitled some financial backing, some financial help from an investment bank to prepare to sell their combined 40% stake in all this. And we've seen a situation like this before. Remember, the former Panthers owner, Jared Richardson, back in 2017, came out allegations toward him of racial slurs toward a scout, as well as sexual suggestive language and behavior in the workplace. So this is not something new. This is not the first time we've seen an NFL owner have these kind of allegations toward them. And before his feet were really to the fire, Jared Richardson sold the team to David Tepper, and they recently took the statue down for Jared Richardson outside the stadium. The same has to be done towards Snyder, because he's just an outright embarrassment. And to add to the embarrassment, when this article came out by the franchise put out a press release on Friday talking about how we're going to do an investigation. We're going to get to the bottom of this. This isn't going to be tolerated, all that stuff, even though they tolerated it for a long time, because while he may have not been directly involved, the fish always rots from the head on down. I mean, come on. Snyder allowed these people in there. It's the same excuse that people use with the Penn State and saying, oh, Joe Paterno had nothing to do with it. Well, come on. He knew what was going on and did nothing about it. I hate to talk bad about him because he unfortunately has passed on. But, Snyder's got to go. And as I said, to add the embarrassment here, they put out a press release on this on Friday talking about this. You realize that they had the gall to refer to themselves as the Redskins on there and put the logo on there? Just 4 days after they announced they're retiring the name and the nickname and the logo, they refer to themselves as that and stamp that logo on there. This organization, they're an embarrassment. They are an outright embarrassment. There are teams that are embarrassments on the field. The Lions, my Jets, the Bengals, the Cleveland Browns over the years, the second version of the Cleveland Browns, not the original Browns that became the eventual Baltimore Ravens. There's been, I'm sure a couple others, the Jaguars in the mix there as well. But off the field, no one No one has been the embarrassment that the Washington football team has been. And that's because of Daniel Snyder. He's been an awful, atrocious owner for that team. And if the NFL had any conscience, had any moral fiber to it, they would force this man out of here, make him sell the team right now so that they could add a little bit of respectability and credibility back to their league. That is, the least that they could be doing, because this man clearly has to go. And that, my friends, is Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, July 20th, 2020. Everyone have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys again same time next week. Enjoy your night, everyone. Peace. Wear a mask. Come on. Let's get through this. We can do this together, people. See? I'm going to keep doing this every week until the numbers start going down.
I have had enough of you.
I can get this damn thing to stay
Thank you
on.
for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will ya? I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.